Hello, I am Deuce and this is Riven Monsters. But before we get started, first things first, let me give you guys a rundown of how this series is going to go. Essentially, the purpose of this series of videos is not to show off my very OP Rivens for my very OP weapons. The purpose of this series of videos is essentially to portray a Riven mod and a weapon that might not get the spotlight, at least not as much these days, if it weren't for these types of Riven that essentially allow these weapons to be really good, in-game good even, and well, that's the whole purpose of this thing. So essentially is to showcase like the true intentions behind the development of Riven Mod. So that being said, please save your pitchforks and torches. Let's get cracking. Now what I've got for you today is a Tysis Riven. Now you might be wondering, Tysis, or what is Tysis? Well, Tysis, it's a tiny little secondary that is very old, as in was the second weapon, the second infested weapon added to the Warframe market. That makes it a really old weapon. Now the Tysis in on itself may not seem like much, but there are a couple of features that I want to highlight. First, it's corrosive, its base damage is corrosive, and second, it's got the highest status chance for any secondary in the game at 50% default. So that makes it a pretty decent weapon, but the Tysis has a couple of setbacks. First, the damage is fairly low, meaning that this is not a weapon you're going to be killing a lot of high level enemies with. And also, since it's a dart firing type weapon, the projectile speed has travel time. But enter my Riven mod, Tysis Hexa Satanak. Now this was one of the first Riven mods I ever got in the game. As you can see, has been rerolled 29 times, but this doesn't mean that this specific stats took 29 rolls to get. Essentially, if I recall correctly, it took me around let's say 10 to 15 rolls to get this specific stats. Now what you're seeing is essentially a Riven mod that adds plus multi-shot, plus projectile flight speed, and plus a lot of status chance. And it's all well and good because the minus, which is crit chance, doesn't affect the Tysis at all. That has a meager crit chance. So this Riven is excellent for these weapons. Essentially, what this Riven does is that it allows the Tysis to be a 100% status chance from the get-go. So you don't have to add 60%. You can basically focus on adding a ton of damage on top of this, and also, and this is very important, it adds a ton of multi-shot. Combined with two other multi-shot mods, just like Lethal Torrent and Barrel Diffusion, the multi-shot of this weapon, it's through the roof, and that is extremely important. Now with this Riven mod, the Tysis can actually tackle SOTY content, meaning that SOTY 3 content level 100 enemies are a no problem to this Tysis with this specific Riven mod. Now as you can see, the build takes a lot of format to get, but it's a very rewarding build because, and this is the reason why I think the Tysis is a Riven monster, not only due to the fact that it's got like 5 out of 5 in its Riven disposition, it's also a weapon that can now be dual wielded. You can dual wield a status proccing secondary with pretty much 100% efficiency at proccing statuses, but not only that, the added multi-shot would allow it to proc several types of status with one shot, so you only need a couple of shots to essentially, with this build, be able to proc 3 different compound elemental status types. In this case, in my case, I prefer radiation, viral, and corrosive, but you can basically toy around with a combination in order to get other types such as magnetic or blast or whatever. But the thing is that this weapon combined with a conditioned overload glaive allows you to deal extremely high amounts of damage. Now I'm not picturing this because I didn't know dual wielding was going to be a thing, and that I was going to have a YouTube channel, and that I needed the glaive for a video, so I don't have the glaive prime anymore. But it's a possibility. It's actually a pretty damn good possibility now that you can actually use the Tysis for these types of gameplays. that allows you to tackle content even with higher level, because essentially you can use the Tysis not only as a damage dealer but also as a status procer, a very efficient and a very good status procer. So as you can see, it's fairly easy with this weapon to tackle a lot of endgame content. Well, not endgame, but sortie content, and it's fairly easy to do it. This is a really good weapon. The plus flight speed helps the Tysis a lot, because the Tysis has flight speed, as I said earlier, and that flight speed may force you to lead your target, but in this case, this particular Riven Mod allows you to not lead it so much and basically letting you snipe with this Riven Mod. So this is the Tysis. It's a forgotten weapon, and I think it's a pretty decent weapon, and with the addition of this Riven Mod, it essentially allows it to become pretty mainstream. So that is all. That's why I consider the Tysis to be a Riven monster. So if you come across a Tysis Riven Mod in your travels, please just give it a second thought, you know, put some work in the Tysis. You might be surprised on how good this weapon can actually be. And that is all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it interesting, please consider giving it a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more Warframe content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.